Now we will discuss learning style. We have discussed learning processes, we have discussed the teaching implications, we have discussed the factors, and now we are discussing the style, learning style. And in this module, we will look at field independence, also field dependence. This is field independence versus field dependence, FI and FD, left and right brain dominance. Learning styles might be thought of as cognitive, affective, and psychological. Cognitive has to do with the mental processes, affective, which means they take into account emotional aspect, and psychological traits and respond to learning environment. Learners have their specific learning styles based on cognitive, affective, and psychological traits. So as a teacher or even as a learner, we have to be very well aware of these traits to develop an effective, meaningful learning style. Then we have field independence, which basically enables you to distinguish part from a whole, to concentrate on something. When you're concentrating on something, you are just concentrating on one aspect and not paying attention to the other surrounding aspect. So field independence basically refers to looking at specific one and not the other areas or other joining parts. And when we're talking about people who belong to this particular style, which is field independence, they are more analytical. They have the ability to analyze, or you can say master things, as opposed to field dependence, which looks at people with field dependence. They look at things in more holistic manner, and they actually pay attention to lots of details. They pay attention to areas which requires empathy, perception, social relationship, and all that. So we have field independence and field dependence as some variables to contribute in the learning styles. Then we have left and right brain dominance. That is the theory that people are either left-brained or right-brained. That is that among certain people, left brain dominates, and in others maybe right brain dominates. So what happens when left brain dominates or right brain? So if people with the left brain dominance, they are more, as I said, analytical, and with the right brain they are more creative and they are more aesthetic. So let's discuss all these in the light of these styles, learning styles. Learning styles mediate between emotion and cognition. For example, a reflective style invariably grows out of a reflective personality and a reflective mood. People's style are determined by the way they internalize their total environment. And since that internalization process is not cognitive strictly, we find that physical, affective, and cognitive domains merge in the learning style. Now looking at field independence is related to looking at things more analytically. It is related to classroom language learning that involves analysis, attention to details, and mastering of exercise, drills, and other focused activities. In general psychological term, that field may be perceptual or it may be more abstract and refer to set of thoughts, ideas, or feelings from which your task is to perceive specific relevant subset. Now, this is field independence, and we must be aware of field dependence. Field dependence is the tendency to be dependent on the total field so that the paths embedded within the field are not easily perceived, although that total field is perceived more clearly as unified whole. Field dependence is synonymous with field sensitivity. A field independent, that is FI style, enables you to distinguish parts from a whole to concentrate on something. And here in the field dependence you have the complete view of the situation in more holistic manner. Cross-culturally, the extent of the development of FID, which is field independence and dependent style, as children mature is a factor of the type of society and home in which the child is reared. Authoritarian societies, which are usually highly socialized, tend to produce more field dependent. Democratic, industrialized, competitive societies, they tend to produce more field independent persons. Two conflicting hypotheses have emerged. First, FI is closely related to classroom learning that involves analysis, attention, drills. The second of the conflicting hypotheses proposes that field-dependent style will, by virtue of its association, social outreach and perception of other people, yield successful learning of the communicative aspect of second language. While no one denies the plausibility of this second hypothesis, little empirical evidence has been gathered to support it. So the support from the empirical data with regard to second is not sufficient. Now we look at left and right brain dominance. As the child's brain matures, various functions become lateralized to the left or right hemisphere. The left hemisphere is associated with logical and analytical thought. The right hemisphere perceives and remembers visual and auditory image. It is more efficient in processing holistic, integrative, and emotional information. While we can cite many differences between left and right brain, it is important to remember that the left and right hemispheres operate together as a team. Through the corpus callosum, messages are sent back and forth so that both hemispheres are involved in much of the neurological activity of the human brain. Most problem solving involves the capacities of both hemispheres, and often the best solution to problems are those in which each hemisphere has participated optimally. To conclude, in dealing with either type of cognitive style, we are dealing with two styles that are highly parallel. Conclusions that were drawn about for field independent and field dependent generally apply well for left and right brain functioning respectively.